Any other members seek recognition? Mr. Wilson's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this amendment by my friend Congresswoman Jacobs and President Connolly and Ranking Member Meeks, which removes a critical provision urging the Secretary of State to declare United States passports invalid for travel to Iran. I've been honored to work with Iranian Americans who are such an inspiration as they pursue justice and freedom for their families while contributing so meaningfully to America. I know their commitments to their loved ones who are oppressed by the murderous regime in Tehran. Sadly, we're in a situation today we did not choose, where we must act to prevent further hostage-taking of Americans by a dictatorial regime. In the war of dictators against democracies, the axis of evil, Putin, the regime in Tehran, the Chinese Communist Party. I was grateful to work on bipartisan legislation to prevent Americans from traveling to North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, using a United States passport following the murderous death of Otto Warmbier at the hands of dictator Kim Jong-un's regime. And I appreciate Congressman Sherman reiterating again, we have this in place already for the dictatorial regime in North Korea. I appreciate that there are differences as we want Iranian Americans to maintain close ties with their families in Iran. It's important to note that Iran already does not recognize dual nationality and treats Iranian Americans as Iranian, requiring an Iranian passport for entry and exit. The inability to travel on a United States passport would likely have little effect on the appreciated Iranian diaspora, which is so important all across America. This amendment calls for a strategy to underscore the dangers of travel to Iran. The dangers couldn't be more clear. I urge opposition to this amendment, and I yield back.
Would my friend yield?
Yes, Mr. President.
I thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. I really appreciate the motivation behind the amendment, but I think there's a certain paternalism we need to guard against in protecting people from themselves. We are Americans. We are free people. We are free to make decisions, including bad ones. There are lots of countries, not only Iran, where Americans are at risk when they travel, including at risk of being imprisoned under false charges. You mentioned North Korea, but there's Cuba, there's China, there's Russia, there's Nicaragua, there's a whole host of countries where Americans put themselves at risk when they travel there. And I don't think the solution is for us to have a blanket prohibition, country by country, cordoning off large chunks of the world's geography because Americans are at risk. I don't want any American to be at risk. I don't want any American harmed or jailed. But I'm not sure, in fact, I'm pretty sure the solution is not a blanket prohibition on the right to travel, even if you know the risks in advance. I thank my good friend for yielding.
And Mr. President, I would like to point out, former President of NATO Parliamentary Assembly. I want to clarify the position of Congressman Connolly. But in light of that, indeed, we have this for North Korea. We already have, Iran already restricts persons from the United States coming into their country. But with the $6 billion ransom announced on the anniversary of 9/11. How crazy is this? The potential of $1 billion per person. And then we can only go back, the statement by the Iranian officials was 2021. It was 2 years ago that they said they looked forward to holding Americans as ransom for $1 billion each. Now, I would have thought that was absurd, except it's happened. I yield back.